medical. Let me introduce medical geology. In 1996, I visited Guizhou province in China, where I saw widespread severe health problems caused by burning of coal. As you can see, people were burning coal without any ventilation. And what we saw was very disturbing. People were suffering from hyperpigmentation, hyperkeratosis, Bowen's disease, squamous cell carcinoma, and this is a deadly disease caused by the high levels of arsenic in the coal that the people were using. I was able to demonstrate that the arsenic, extraordinarily high levels of arsenic in the coal, was actually in the coal itself. We see here that gray area that corresponds to the energy dispersive spectra showing the high concentrations of arsenic. And it was not in the mineral matter, in the pyrite as typically occurs. And because of this, we were able to develop techniques to help minimize the exposure to the arsenic. But people in the region were also making handmade coal briquettes by, as you see me, before I started dyeing my hair gray to look more mature, I was pounding moist coal and adding soil as a binder. Unfortunately, the soil was highly enriched in fluorine, and the people were drying corn or maize, and the corn absorbed the fluorine, resulting in millions of people in the region suffering from dental fluorosis, from skeletal fluorosis, from bone deformation. In addition, in other parts of the province, people burning coal were suffering from selenium poisoning, loss of hair, loss of fingernails, mercury poisoning from burning the coal, resulting in blindness. And in the adjacent province, Yunnan province, women were cooking their food, burning coal that had extraordinarily high concentrations of quartz, and they suffered the highest levels of lung cancer in the world. Well, in 1990, about 2000, I joined with my colleagues, Uli Salinas, a geochemist with the Swedish Geological Survey, and Jose Centeno, who is with the Armed Forces Institute of Pathology. He was a chemical toxicologist. And we systematically organized the subject of medical geology, the study of the impacts of geologic materials and geologic processes on animal and human health. We presented medical geology short courses in about 30 countries. We established the International Medical Geology Association. We initiated the MedGeo conferences, and incidentally, the 10th conference will be held in Monterrey, Mexico this coming August. Please consider participating in that conference. And I created the International Student Conferences on Medical Geology and Environmental Health. The next one, as has been mentioned, will focus on Africa, and it will be held in just a month from now. Please visit segh.net, and you can find out more about that conference and join it, no charge for participating in that conference. We also produced a number of books on medical geology. Some of the books have been translated into Chinese and other languages, but there are other books now on medical geology that have been written in Spanish, in Portuguese, and in other languages as well. Among the medical geology topics that also, of course, are under the realm of environmental health. And let me be clear, medical geology is a subset of environmental geochemistry and health. As you can see here, a wide array of different topics illustrating how the natural environment can impact human health in enormously different ways, many opportunities for researchers like ourselves to help reduce, eliminate the unnecessary impacts on our environment and on human health. So why SEGH? Well, as was indicated, SEGH is the oldest society that focuses on medical geology and related issues. It has dynamic young leaders, you're truly being the exception, innovative, willing to push boundaries. SEGH Americas focuses on our issues, the issues of the Americas, which in many cases are similar to issues around the world, but in some cases are unique. So the opportunity to collaborate with other researchers working on similar problems is priceless. And the society is welcoming and offers opportunities to be creative. So I welcome you all to this organization. I encourage you to get involved. I encourage you to be active in the organization, and I will be pleased to answer any questions that you may have. Gracias. Bye.
All right, thanks, Bob. I mean, where else can you go from moon rocks to coal and back, and all in one, you know, short talk? So that's really great. Thanks, Bob. So I think, Bob, you were going to introduce our next speaker.
Just, yeah, let me, yes, indeed. I would like to introduce my good friend, colleague, Ophelia Morton. Ophelia, are you ready to take
I'm
on?
ready. I'm ready.
Great.
Yeah, you'll have to start
Sure.
sharing your
Yes.
screen, Ophelia, and I think you'll kick Bob off when you do that.
No puede comenzar a compartir mientras. Your presentation is there, Bob. You
It's
have
there.
to.
We
Stop share.
figure out how to end it. New share. No.
Stop
I'll
share.
share mine, and then that should kick you off, and then I will jump off, and Ophelia can jump on.
I think I'm off now.
Maybe you have to do it to me too. Okay. Now? No. No, I cannot. Again.
Okay, try it now.
Okay, I think so.
You can see how crazy my computer looks right now.
Now, yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
Great.
I have to change this here maybe. And now where can I change it to all?
Down.
Maybe here.
There you go. Yeah.
Yes. But it's okay now.
Yeah. Perfect.
Beautiful.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent.
Hello, I am Ofelia Morton. I work in the Universidad Nacional Autónoma de México in Mexico City. I have been part of the Society of Environmental Geochemistry and Health since 2012 maybe, and member of the boards for about 3 years. At the university in Mexico, I am in charge of the ICP-MS lab. And in this presentation, I want to show the analytical possibility we have and my team, and I'm going to do it in Spanish for students in Latin America, but at the end of the meeting, we will have a discussion. In the case you have questions, we can speak about that later. Okay, then maybe this. I am 27 years in Mexico City at the university, and this time we began with the lab, and this time we have do you see what I am showing you here or not? Yes, okay. We have a ICAP-Q from Thermo since about 9 years, and we work for many projects at the university and for students and other universities in Mexico, and for our projects too. Our main directions is urban geochemistry. Okay, I wanted to do it in Spanish. Perdón. Bueno, esta es la infraestructura analítica que tenemos en el laboratorio. El principal instrumento de laboratorio es el plasma masas, un espectrómetro plasma masas, pero también tenemos un espectrómetro. En los últimos años tenemos un espectrómetro directo de mercurio, un analizador directo de mercurio. Trabajamos mucho con mercurio en los últimos años y tenemos 2 equipos, un equipo Lumex para determinarlo en el medio ambiente atmosférico y un DMA para determinarlo en muestras sólidas. Las metodologías analíticas que hemos desarrollado en estos 27 años están aquí apuntadas cronológicamente. Al principio trabajamos varios años con el análisis de tierras raras, después con metales pesados. Esta línea es la fuerte en el laboratorio, es lo que más hemos trabajado, no solo para nosotros, para otros grupos de trabajo. Los elementos del grupo de platino fue también una parte muy importante porque nosotros comenzamos en México con estos análisis y desde hace unos años, unos 8 años, trabajamos mucho con mercurio en diferentes ambientes. Estas metodologías las hemos aplicado en el análisis de material geológico, material ambiental como aguas, polvos, filtros. Este tema es muy importante en nuestro grupo de trabajo, en material vegetal y en los últimos años en tejidos humanos. En esta línea es la que vamos a trabajar los próximos años más intensivamente. Esto nos vamos a dedicar mucho y sí, por nuestra participación en varios proyectos grandes en México, en varios proyectos PRONACES, así se llaman aquí en México, unos proyectos financiados por el gobierno federal, por CONACYT, por el gobierno federal. Bueno, las investigaciones nos han ayudado para participar en proyectos gubernamentales, sobre todo con las secretarías de medio ambiente, en apoyo académico con diferentes universidades de Chihuahua, de Coahuila, de Nuevo León, de Sonora, de San Luis Potosí, de Morelia, en diferentes áreas. Y una cosa muy bonita que también ha hecho Elizabeth Hernández, que es miembro es la técnico de los procedimientos analíticos y del equipo, ella ha apoyado la instalación y la implementación de metodologías en otros laboratorios similares en México. Esto, aparte de que es una cosa muy buena, le ahorra mucho tiempo a los laboratorios nuevos, a nosotros nos trae mucho solidez porque nos apoyan mucho los otros laboratorios cuando lo necesitamos. Bueno, estas son las líneas de investigación nuestras. La geoquímica urbana, la geoquímica en zonas mineras, la geoquímica del mercurio y, como les decía, el impacto en la salud. De todas maneras, como estos son los monitores que hemos trabajado en cada una de las líneas y estas en las zonas de México en donde hemos aplicado estas metodologías. Como les decía, esta es a la que nos vamos a dedicar mucho en los próximos, mínimo los próximos 2 años, pero siempre está el laboratorio a disposición de participar en proyectos de otros grupos, sobre todo de estudiantes. Entonces, el que se quiera contactar con nosotros, ahorita ponemos de todas maneras nuestros correos aquí en el chat, estamos a sus órdenes. Okay, we will have time for questions later. Okay, thank you very much. Now, it's okay now? No. Or not?
Yeah, you'll have to escape.
I know. Where?
There you go. Or let's see, I can probably just kick you off.
Please. Okay, yes, thank you.
All right, can you see my screen?
Yes.
See,
Okay, so yeah, we'll have plenty of time to talk more about that. The thing about Ophelia that I like so much, she's really nice. She has a lot of expertise on those machines, and she's looking for a lot of, you know, good collaborators and good input. And she has a lot of really cool projects going on right now at the moment. And so yeah, feel free to ask her more about that if you want to learn a little bit more in English. But you know, one of the big challenges to starting this kind of network is sort of bridging that language gap. So we'll probably have some presentations in English and Spanish going throughout, and we're going to try to work on getting some transcripts and stuff like that, and some stuff translated for you. But so yeah, apologies. I am actively trying to learn Spanish, but I'm not very good at it yet. So I'm going to give my presentation in English. So let's see, I want to check my time so I don't go over too crazy long. So yeah, my name's Clay Prater. I'm a postdoc in the integrative biology department at Oklahoma State University. I'd like to thank the people from Oklahoma State, my collaborators Puni and Mateo for joining this call along with everybody else. We've had like almost 25 people or something so far, so this has been really great. It's sort of, you know, gone really well. A lot of interest, so I'm really excited. So I sort of, you know, connect to the world and connect to the people as far as my job through studying elements. So I'm definitely an elemental nerd, and I spent a lot of time thinking about these elements, right? So this is just to give you an idea of the elements in the human body. This is sort of the periodic table. You know, you can look at it a lot of different ways. You can think about it as, you know, organic chemistry and just think about carbon, right? Or you can have way more fun, as us inorganic chemists do, and think about all of these other elements, right? But the more that I look at this and the way it's sort of divided up, I think, you know, sort of these putting stuff this way is really useful, but you're almost invariably always going to make a mistake, because I think, you know, thinking about elements in biology, we haven't really ever sort of done it in kind of, you know, a super integrated way. Sorry, I want to make sure my cursor stays up. So while like we know, you know, all of these elements that aren't pink have important biological functions, I guarantee you that probably over half of these elements are in your body right now, right? These elements get into us, they do things we have no idea of. Some of them, I'm sure, have essential biological functions that we have no idea of. And so I'm just trying to, you know, expand myself, expand my brain. And I've learned a lot of this stuff that I'm about to present mostly by collaborations with people. So I'm really looking forward to kind of building those connections. So yeah, I'm over here in the middle of the US right now. I'm like I said, I'm at Oklahoma State, but I grew up, really in the state next over in Arkansas, and I grew up playing outside. My dad taught me a lot about conservation. So I got a degree in biology, which is about as far away from chemistry as you can get, but I actually was kind of a better chemistry student, so I do biology through the lens of chemistry and through the lens of the periodic table. Now, coming from a really small town in a really small part of the world, I try to get out of there. I've expanded. I've got to live and work in Canada and in the UK. I've been lucky enough to do research and Greenland, which I'll talk about a little bit more. I have some research going on with the former president of SEGH in Africa. I've got to do presentations, all over the world. And the best part of all of this is that mostly other people paid for it, right? So I've got to get out, I've got to explore. I've got to make really amazing connections all over the world. But as you see over here, I have done a really poor job so far of getting involved in Latin America. And that's really important to me, as my lovely partner who's on the call, Andrea, and her sister actually are from Peru. So I would really, just for personal reasons as well, like to spend a lot more time working around down here. Okay, so in my career, I basically have, just sort of one overall mission, and that's sort of to use this knowledge of chemistry and biology to help people, the people around me, the people I care about, and others, obviously, and the environment, right? And we're, intimately connected to our environment. Most of this is through elements, right? So I really spent a lot of time going between these two things. I won't talk about people that much today, but the environment. And I sort of go between these two things by working on something that we're sort of still not sure what it is. We're kind of developing the concepts. We'll call it elemental biology right now. And then environmental geochemistry. And I have geochemistry in quotes because I'm not a trained geochemist. I'm a simple ecologist, but I've been learning a lot over the last few years through kind of, showing up to talks like this and talking to other people. So sort of the theory that I use, if you want to boil it down to its most basic root, is that, yeah, everything's connected by elements, right? And the idea that, it's great to study individual elements, but I think I've, the more elements that I've studied and the more that I've thought about them, I seem to always get a better understanding of whatever question I'm asking by looking at more and more of them. So I have a background in ecological stoichiometry, where it's focused mostly, more on sort of the elements that are really involved with the synthesis of organic materials, and sort of this idea that's a bit newer. So this was sort of, ecological stoichiometry has really taken off. The ionome, we're trying to push it and bring it forward, and the ionome is just basically whatever you can put in an ICP-MS and get out of it, right? So like these are more of the organic elements, these are more of the inorganic elements, and we've studied these over here for a really long time because they make up the predominant portion of elements in biomass. But as I tell all my stoichiometry friends, it doesn't matter how much C and P you have, if you don't have these other elements, you don't have life, right? So even though these elements, so some of these metals might be in really low proportions, they have really important functions in the body. So, kind of combining these two ideas, I sort of got drug into this by my current postdoc advisor, Pooney, and it's just really been nice to be here in Oklahoma for a couple of years where I can talk to him every day about this. And like I said, we're still trying to develop it, but if you want to get sort of, a general introduction into this kind of idea of looking at elements and the entire elemental composition of an organism is sort of an integrated trait that tells us a lot about the environment. the organism. So so just briefly, like one sort of intro sketch to kind of sort that out. This is one of my favorite quotes. And this is by really amazing English chemist, R.J.P. Williams. Biology is a search for chemistry that works, right? So biology is obviously reliant on the supplies of elements in the environment. And when life sort of evolved on the planet, it did so, using these elements, right? So it's basically, organisms use elements based upon their, availability in the environment, but also their chemical properties, right? So, it takes a little bit of an understanding of how these elements work, but just a little bit in order to be dangerous, right? So these elements are used for different functions. So you have basically, so these are just sort of concentrations of the elements in the oceans where we think life evolved, but we really don't know. So you see things that are in the highest proportions, right? So these sort of cations, anions, these bulk elements, there's a ton of them. So life evolved to use them for sort of balancing charges across membranes, right? A little bit less things like these organic things that I like, carbon and nitrogen, right? So these are used to, like I said before, sort of build up biomass. These metals down here, you see there's sort of, these arrows mean they've changed a lot through times in the oceans, and they've changed due to changes in redox processes in the oceans. And like I said, although they might be a really tiny amount of the overall mass, they have a sort of, much bigger effect on how biology works. And my guy Mateo can tell you a lot more about that. He'd tell you that metals is definitely where it's at, right? So so yeah, these are sort of like the basic functions you see down here, these elements that are sort of too scarce for life. It doesn't mean that, they can't be used. They might indeed, but sort of, they're not available in enough enough to really be used by biology in any kind of major way, right? So so it's this sort of, the composition of and availability of elements in the environment whenever life evolved obviously had a really big effect on the evolution of life on Earth. So I was talking about redox a bit earlier. So whenever we got oxygenations of the oceans, right around the time of Burgess Shale, we started to have an expansion of the number of families, biological families in life. So this was both an increase in a change in the redox state of the ocean, which released a lot of metals that were formerly sort of bound up, but also sort of, the breakup of rodinia and glacial cycles, which sort of, take all of this material from the land, dump it into the water. So basically, there's a really strong correlation between the diversity of elements in the environment and biological diversity, right? And organismal elemental composition. So this is just a section of two sort of, algal families, major algal families. And you'll see that the ones that were sort of evolved earlier, kind of before this process, they have a very different elemental composition from those that evolve afterwards, right? So just that leads me kind of to the first concept that I think about quite a lot, which is that, organismal elemental composition reflects a wealth of information about their evolution, their ecology, and the environment around them. Okay, so just to give you a really quick visualization of that, this is one of the first papers that I did with Pooney, and it's really fun doing this sort of work, right? Because we usually focus on a couple elements. Pooney started doing all these other elements, and there's sort of, we can, jump in at the very beginning. There's so much low-hanging fruit, right? We can ask just really simple questions like, well, does the elemental composition of different species, does that differ? When you look at it, it does, right? So these are some bugs from streams, and they differ ecologically, right? So this bug eats a lot of leaves in streams. This bug eats more algae in streams, and this bug eats a combination of both, right? And you can see by my sort of Venn diagram here that they do have sort of differences in their elemental composition. So for instance, this one eating leaves, leaves have a lot of carbon, very little anything else, basically. So they have a lot of carbon, nothing else. These are eating photosynthetic organisms. They have a lot of metals in them. And we see these differences across these taxa, but also, you know, there's about 20 elements that are needed to have life. So there's a lot of overlap in them as well, right? But when we do something like we have an environment where, you know, humans are really good at adding elements into that environment, we add things like nitrogen and phosphorus, and we actually see changes in these elements with that through time, right? So it's, you know, organisms have this elemental composition, but it's really strongly tied to the elements in the environment, and, you know, differences in those will really affect the ecology of these organisms. Okay, so I'll speed up a little bit because I want to have time for questions. But basically, yeah, humans have altered a lot more than nitrogen and phosphorus, right? So here's a figure that came out recently showing that basically, you know, over the last 100 years or so, we've basically, you know, humans use a lot of elements to do, you know, what we want to do. So humans have mobilized a tremendous amount of elements into the environment, right? So this is just evidence of that. These are some elements in sediment lake cores over the last 10,000 years, you know, sort of since agriculture kicked off, and a lot of different elements. Here's my carbon, nitrogen, and phosphorus have increased. But also things like calcium and some of these cations. Metals have done the same thing. And that has, you know, ecological effects, but it also has, you know, effects on human nutrition. So obviously the biggest thing one of the biggest things we released is carbon into the atmosphere, right? Carbons will plants take in carbon, right, to photosynthesize. So basically us throwing carbon in the atmosphere has completely changed the nutrition of the food that we eat, actually. So you have this effect called nutrient dilution, where you throw carbon into the atmosphere, right? Plants have more carbon to this. So the food that we're eating is actually getting more nutritionally poor just by throwing stuff into the environment, right? So, so that's sort of the second concept that I'll just, you know, touch on here. Basically, you know, environmental geochemistry reflects all the sort of abiotic and biotic processes, including us humans, in the environment around them. So I've been spending a lot of time doing some work up in here in Greenland by the ice sheet, doing some basic geochemistry, right? I've been learning a lot. So this is sort of our classic geochemistry, dissolved elements in the lakes. And we see that, you know, sort of the elements in our lakes are a function of both sort of weathering, differences in bedrock geology across the region, basic things like redox processes and metals, and then especially things like sulfur and phosphorus are actually coming in from dust that's being produced by the glacier as it moves. This has a really big effect on how much material is coming into these lakes. So we estimate like 90%, over 90% of the material coming to our lakes is actually coming from dust around. So that brings in stuff like phosphorus that I'm, you know, have studied a lot. So we have these sort of local effects that are happening. We also have long range transport and deposition of nitrogen and other elements, right? So we have these sort of changes in the geochemistry of the region that are changing due to both, you know, direct human effects, release of nitrogen, indirect effects by this glacial activity. And what we're finding is the primary, you know, the biology in these lakes is really strongly responding to that, right? So the biology, just primary production of the microbes is sort of, you know, increasing as this dust goes up, as all these elements coming in, decreasing as it goes down. And we sort of, you know, the last 25 years or so, I've seen an exponential increase of production in these lakes that's directly tied to human changes. And the one thing that I'll just highlight here, you know, if we want to study a few elements like carbon and nitrogen, we can, you know, sort of explain what's happening here, but actually by looking at all of these other elements, we get a lot better sort of picture of what's happening and a better predictive understanding of all of that, right? So what's next? Like, where's this stuff going? Well, I'm working with some of my collaborators here, Puni, who I showed you earlier. This is Matteo Menghetti, and he's in our department. He does a ton of awesome work with toxology, metal metal physiology, and we have Jorge Estrella as well. And he does a lot of, awesome work with, looking at geochemistry and the environment. They both do work with nanometals and nanoplastics. So they're a really awesome resource to reach out to as well. They're helping me, try to get a job by getting some equipment to where we can sort of do these measurements, right? So Ophelia has equipment in her lab, but we're trying to develop a machine that will let us measure these elements in really tiny animals, but also in the environment at the same time, to kind of bridge these two different, this organismal perspective and this environmental perspective together, working with a lot of different people on sort of developing a theory of how we manage all of this stuff, and really just kind of spreading these ideas and concepts. And again, sort of really looking forward to doing this in the Americas over here. And on the call, I've already seen we have people from Canada, all the way down to at least Peru, and I don't know if anybody is further south than that. So we have a really good representation today. So yeah, that's kind of our introduction to us. I'm sorry, I talked way longer than I should have. Someone should have cut me off, but if you have a few minutes to stick around, we would really like to just kind of open the floor up, right? So we said that what we do, but ultimately for everybody on the call, we're here. Our role in SEGH is to sort of help you, bring some content, that you might be interested in. We're trying to develop a frame, this sort of network of people, like I said, going from Canada all the way down to the tip of South America. So yeah, the floor is open. Feel free to ask us any questions that you might have, or yeah, shoot, say whatever you want. The thing, I'll say one thing before I open it up. We have Dawn Burton on the call, and she's going to be our next speaker in November. She's been really patient while I've been trying to put this together. So yeah, Dawn will give our next talk in November. And let's see, yeah, the November the 16th at noon. So I'll send out a flyer. So if you haven't put your information in yet, hopefully, the people that emailed you last time can forward it. But if you want a direct link to this, and I'll have the schedule for the rest of the year out, and I have it put together now. I just don't have it out. So I'll stop talking. So go ahead. Does anybody have any questions, comments, concerns? What can we do to, to kind of, as SEGH, to help you out in your research? Okay, does anybody have any questions? Somebody must have questions for Bob or Ophelia.
Clay, might mention that if anyone thinks of another question or a suggestion, Clay, your email is available for people to contact.
Yeah, so I've put it I've put it in the chat here. I'll put it one more time.
Mine email is there in the chat now.
You could contact any of us with questions or suggestions.
Yes, and maybe we don't have the email address from everybody.
Yeah, so I've asked everybody if you could go before you log off, if you want to see our, continue with our series. If you could please leave your email, your name and email in the chat before you log off, that would be really great. And yeah,
Clay, maybe
if you have any ideas, thoughts, questions about anything that we're doing, feel free, or yeah, if you don't want to ask them now, feel free to email me. If you have a
Mateo
topic
wants
that
to
you
ask
want covered.
something.
Yeah.
Hey, Clay, thank you. And thank you all. I just want to say that I'm very pleased to be part of this group. I enjoy every talk. And maybe one thing is we have situations of concern.
Can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Mateo?
Yeah.
yes, I can.
Well, yeah, so basically we have a lot of situation of concern all over the world. And I think this is a very important debate that we are having, basically putting communication biologists and geochemists, because like, for example, one of my new PhD students is looking at this site near Oklahoma State, Tar Creek, that is northeast Oklahoma, where we have a lot of contamination with very high level of metals in the water. There is still a lot of people there eating fish that are living in this water. So I was fascinated by looking at these images and report of people suffering from living in contaminated sites. So yeah, we are just at the beginning of this project, but I think I would definitely like to tell you more about our findings and ask for your help when we have more data. That's all.
Thanks, Mateo. Yeah, I mean, Ophelia, that's right in her wheelhouse. You know, she does a lot of yeah, environment, like metals and waters and stuff like that, and environmental contamination. So she would be more than you know, happy to help out, and lend her. She's got a ton of experience. So
I was not connected about 3 minutes, but you can write me, please.
yeah. So
Yeah.
Mateo was just saying, you know, he does a lot of work here in Oklahoma, in the Tar Creek area. So there's a lot of heavy metals and stuff there. And he's really interested about the geochemistry there. So he has a lot of expertise in metal physiology, and fish toxicity and stuff like that. So there's a lot of really good.
Do you have your email in the list?
I can send it to you. I'll send it to you.
Okay.
I got
it.
Okay.
Okay, don't worry.
But yeah, I mean, like, that's the cool thing that we can do as well. You know, if we think that there's a really, you know, there's a really big issue or something that we can address in this forum, you know, we can do that as well.
Yes. I want to say too, this is very easy to work with people, with the society, but because very quickly when we have questions on we have a discussion, we can do it in a day later, very quickly and very easy. And I am sure it will help you too in your projects.
Yeah, Ophelia will just like get on the message me and be like, hey, what's up? You know, and then like we'll be talking pretty quickly. So yeah, but you know, as far as you talking about communications, Mateo, and it's like, we're not trained to do that, right? We're not trained. A lot of us, we're like in the lab and are kind of weird and don't talk to people really well, right? So it's like there's a really big gap and a really big break there, right? So like that's why we're bringing on Dawn, and I don't know if you wanted to plug your talk, Dawn, but she has like a wealth of expertise in that, right? Working with communities and people. So yeah, do you want to give a plug, Dawn, or yeah?
Well, I want to say thank you, first of all, for inviting me to speak to your group, and also to sit in on the session today. I found the topics very fascinating. I actually have a undergrad degree in chemistry, even though I've gravitated away from the hard sciences, and I'm focusing more on social and human sciences. It's always a home away from home type of feeling to hear conversations about the hard sciences. But the particular connection that I heard from you today was that there is a new effort called precision nutrition in the food nutrition world, and your studies in particular seem like they would lend to that as we look at creating food to feed people that is more nutrient dense, and to know, you know, what elements are missing so that we can create those nutrients, the appropriate nutrients for people. My talk is a little bit different from that. That was my own personal share from just the experience. But I look forward to sharing my work and not so much research, but work that we're trying to create is framework around bias and bringing the realities of injustices into social action as it relates to preventing illnesses and disease. And so I'll get into more of that during my time. And I work for Cooperative Extension within the United States and several other countries. There's a land grant university that is federally funded to go out into the community and provide health and wellness and support for the citizens. And my particular focus is health and wellness. And within that network, what we're doing is creating a framework that focuses on not only the educational aspect that people need to learn, but also understanding and being sensitive to the injustices and those things that inhibit people from being able to be healthy. That is pretty much out of their control. If they're not able to, earn a substantial wage, but they're living in an environment like a low income neighborhood, then those neighborhoods tend to have several consistent social determinants that cause health disparities. And sometimes that's forgotten when you're doing education. You think, well, if they know better, they'll do better. But even if they do better and they don't have access to the things that allow them to do better, then they're still going to be in a difficult place. So I don't want to talk too long. Thank you.
Thanks, Dawn. That's really awesome. That's a great plug. And we're really, really excited to have you because, of course, you know, one of the big you know, across the network we're trying to build, there's income inequality, right? There's all kinds of stuff like that, you know, between the US and the global South that we've really, you know, helped set up. So we like, none of us are trained to think that way or do it. So we're really excited for your talk. November 16th at this time. Again, I'll send out well, it'll be the same link actually. So if you have the link this time, it'll be the same link. I guess I should have said that earlier. You can click on that, but I'll send out a new flyer. And Andrea put the other one together. I did a really horrible job, and she, you know, made it look really pretty. So we can get her to design one for Dawn as well, maybe. So, so yeah. Thanks for showing up. I'm going to stay on if there's any more, you know, questions or comments or concerns, but we went over because I was long-winded. So just thanks so much for showing up. And yeah, we hope to see you again. If you want to give a talk, if you know someone who you think might be good for this group to bring in, let me know. You know, send me a message and I'd be more than happy to get in touch with them. So thanks so much for showing up.
Before I sign off, let me remind you, if you are not already a member of SEGH, please consider you would automatically become a member of SEGH Americas, and you can help advance the activities that some of which you've heard of. So again, I add my appreciation for your involvement and look forward to seeing all of you in 1 month.
Thanks,
Take
Bob.
care.
Yeah, and if you would like to join, I don't know like what the fees are or anything like that, but if you would like to join and you'd like to be involved and you know, but don't maybe have that cash right now, let me know, because we would love to have you and we can make some room for that. So yeah, I'm the contact person, so just, you know, send me emails. Feel free to reach out. We can WhatsApp chat or something like that. So
Adios.
yeah, thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sophia. Yeah.
See you the next days.
Yeah. Bye.
Thank you, Andrea. Andrea's no more there.
I'll tell her.
Ciao, Osvaldo.